I've seen my fair share of rankings in the Kingdom Hearts community. Boss rankings, character rankings, ship rankings, really just the entirety of Kingdom Hearts has been ranked at this point. However, people have neglected to look at the most important aspect of this entire 20-year-old franchise. The number one thing that the majority of Kingdom Hearts fans both talk about and want to see videos covering: the 7 Princesses of Heart. This is a pretty major plot point back in the first Kingdom Hearts game, and people have been clamoring for more Princess of Heart goodness ever since, so I'm here finally stepping up to the plate. Let it be known that I was the only person with the gall to talk about the most important aspect of Kingdom Hearts. I am truly the only person with enough confidence to tackle this monumental beast of a topic. Which princess is the best? For the uninitiated, or people who forgot that there are other KH games besides Kingdom Hearts 2, the Princesses of Heart were all captured by Maleficent prior to and during the course of the original Kingdom Hearts. Maleficent, or rather Ansem, needed them in order to summon the final keyhole and gain access to the all-powerful and purposefully nebulous Kingdom Hearts. The 7 princesses in alphabetical order were Alice, Aurora, Belle, Cinderella, Jasmine, Kairi, and Snow White. New Princesses of Heart were teased in Kingdom Hearts 3, but we won't be looking at those candidates today. But if we did, Rapunzel would obviously be number 1. Half of the princesses weren't seen in the original Kingdom Hearts until the final act of the game, unless you count their brief Dive to the Heart appearances, while others played more major/minor roles throughout the game's story. For the purpose of this highly important ranking, I'm going to look at how each of the princesses were portrayed throughout the entirety of the series, instead of looking exclusively at the first Kingdom Hearts game. And when I say the entirety of the series, I really just mean the ones I want to look at. I'm not going to parse through the Union Cross Theater mode because, I don't completely hate myself. Plus, I'm not entirely sure there's anything Union Cross could present that would sway my already existing perception of these characters. Looking at the majority of the series instead of just Kingdom Hearts 1 will somewhat level the playing field, as princesses like Snow White and Cinderella barely appeared in the first game. Also, if it wasn't already clear, I'm only looking at how these characters were portrayed in Kingdom Hearts. No Disney films will be used to back up the rankings because, while these are the same characters, they exist within a completely different context. So with all that out of the way, it's now finally time to conclude the decade-long debate. Who is, in fact, the greatest princess of all?
Oh!
The existence of one princess who is the best means that there is one princess who has to be the worst. And honestly, it's a pretty easy choice. Aurora was always going to be the worst Princess of Heart. I count exactly one single BBS cutscene where we actually hear her voice, and even then it's in a flashback. She has never once had any sort of active role in any part of the story, or really even a passive one. She practically doesn't exist. It must be rough being the protagonist of a story where you're destined to sleep throughout half of it. It doesn't help that BBS decided to skip the entire first half of the Sleeping Beauty plot, meaning that we're left with nothing but the aforementioned sleeping section. I don't really have anything else to say about Aurora. She's just nothing. You know it's bad when Prince Philip somehow looks like an overflowing spring of personality when compared to you. She's about as interesting as wet paint, but at least wet paint changes if you stare at it for long enough.
This should help.
If there's one thing that's true about Snow White, it's that she has an annoying voice.
Why no, I don't think I've ever heard that name.
This point can't be argued against, and for that reason alone, she has no chance being any higher than this exact spot. Snow White also lacks any personality outside of being sweet yet helpless, which admittedly is a pretty stark improvement when compared to Aurora's complete lack of personality, but the same thing could be said of a 2x4. To be fair, Snow White does have the decency and poise to be grateful when Ven helps her escape the deep woods, which is at least something of a personality trait, right? Like, gratefulness. But this isn't really enough to bring her up any higher on the list. The best thing I can say about Snow White is I like her design, and her running animation is pretty funny. Additionally, her D-Link is subpar at best, and really highlights how the most interesting thing about her are the characters that accompany her. She's easily overshadowed by any one of the dwarfs, which should really tell you everything you need to know.
Aladdin!
As much as it pains me to admit, Jasmine isn't good in Kingdom Hearts. Her headstrong and independent nature from the film is completely gone and has instead been replaced with a generic damsel in distress. Jasmine might actually be Kingdom Hearts' definitive damsel in distress, at least in terms of the Disney characters. Trust me, we'll get back to this point later. She always seems to be captured or in peril. There are so many instances where it feels like Jasmine could do or say more to help her situation, but she actively chooses to do nothing instead. She never makes an attempt to fight back against Jafar or even throw a snarky comment his way. Her characterization feels completely off. She's represented so terribly that I considered putting Snow White above her, but I couldn't quite muster the strength to do so. She doesn't have any qualities that make her feel distinct from the other princesses, and her personality is about as bland and disappointing as taking a bite out of a sand sandwich, but at least her voice isn't annoying.
Give me strength!
This is really where things start to turn around for the princesses. From this point on, we'll be looking at the good ones, the real cream of the royal crop, if you will. Alice just barely makes it into this upper echelon. She doesn't do much, and she doesn't have a lot of screen time, but it is very much appreciated that she actually stands up to the Queen of Hearts in some way. In comparison to the other princesses, this is a massive improvement. Little side tangent, does anyone else think it's weird that a character literally referred to as the Queen of Hearts doesn't have more importance in the grand scheme of Kingdom Hearts? Like, I know she isn't the most popular villain, and I know that her role in Alice in Wonderland isn't even that significant, but her name really speaks for itself. I have no idea how she would be implemented into the plot or mythos of Kingdom Hearts, but even a side comment made by Sora would have made at least some semblance of sense. If Wonderland wasn't the series' first ever Disney World, I feel as though this would have been discussed or at least mentioned in some way. But this isn't a list of the most underutilized characters, yet. This is a list of the best princesses, and Alice earned her way this high on the list by not being completely complacent with an oppressive monarch. Hey, another quick side tangent, because I guess that's just what we're doing now. Isn't it weird that Alice is one of the princesses in the first place? Every other member, besides Kairi, is one of the de facto Disney princesses, and then there's Alice. If you look at the Disney Princess website, which I'm sure you do all the time, then you'll notice that Alice isn't one of the listed princesses. However, the rest of the Princesses of Heart are. This is likely because the Disney Princess brand was created during the development of Kingdom Hearts, meaning they didn't have a framework to base their choices on. They got to create their own Disney Princess brand before it was even an official product line. Is that interesting to you, or do you wish you didn't watch this? I'm assuming it's the latter.
Let's go!
This is likely the most surprising entry on the list, but I'm putting Cinderella at number 3. When I was first brainstorming this video idea, I was pretty sure that Aurora, Snow White, and Cinderella would all sit comfortably at the bottom of the list, but Cinderella really surprised me. She's sweet and kind like most of the other princesses, but also somewhat courageous, actually. She shows a pretty admirable amount of courage, which has a distinct impact on Terra, and subsequently the 2 remaining members of the trio. Her determination to get to the ball despite the literal murderous monsters blocking her path is the most impressive thing we've seen from any Disney princess thus far. If only the ball was worth going to. This is just depressing. Her D-Link is also quite good and has a cool little rhythm-esque minigame for its combat finisher. Cinderella is the real sleeper hit of the Princesses of Heart, much to the chagrin of Aurora's lifeless corpse.
Fire!
I'm unsure if this take would be considered lukewarm or ice cold, but I'm putting Kairi at number 2. This is an instance where more screen time unfortunately equates to less impressive results. In the original Kingdom Hearts, Kairi spends 90% of the time asleep, just really taking a page from Aurora's unimpressive book. However, she does save Sora at the end of Hollow Bastion 1, and has by far the most story significance among the 7 princesses. I can confidently say that she'd be number 1 if the original Kingdom Hearts was all we were looking at, but unfortunately for her, that's not the case. In KH2, she gets captured by Axel, and kind of just lets it happen. She does get a Keyblade by the end of the game, however, meaning that there surely must be something good coming for her around the corner. The secret ending for Dream Drop Distance hinted at her becoming a real Keyblade wielder under the tutelage of Master Yen Sid, and in KH3 she spent the entire game training with Axel in a time-frozen training ground. So finally, after years of waiting, Kairi showed us that she wasn't just a useless member of the team by It honestly isn't Kairi's fault. There's a lot of potential with her character, but Nomura seems fixated on making her the actual definitive damsel in distress. I really don't know why you'd set up all these puzzle pieces alluding to her becoming a competent member of the team when you don't have any intention to actually make that happen. Sure, there's something poetic about Sora saving Kairi at the end of KH3, similarly to how she saved him near the end of KH1, but I don't believe it was worth the disappointing utilization of her character to get to that loose poetic plot thread. Thankfully, Kairi did get her moment to prove her combative competence and remind, but it felt like a band-aid trying to heal a stitch-worthy gash. The ability to fight obviously isn't the only important aspect of a character, but it felt as though Kairi was set up in such a way that implied she wouldn't become an object to be saved for once. We were consistently shown that she would eventually step up and become something more than what she had been in the past, but when the time came, Nomura couldn't do it. Kairi may be the second best Princess of Heart, but she's simultaneously the most disappointing one.
Beast!
And finally, the greatest Princess of Heart is without a doubt Belle. She's a badass. She's got a heart of pure kindness, but is also independent and reliable. Beast loves her so much that he traveled to Hollow Bastion after the destruction of his world using nothing but sheer willpower. You really think he'd do the same for Snow White? He'd likely relish in the vacuumous silence of space. Belle's just built differently. During the second Hollow Bastion visit in KH1, she just nonchalantly gives Sora the best Keyblade in the game other than the Ultima weapon. Sorry, Kairi, Oathkeeper's getting the bench. By far, her greatest accomplishment is her Iron Elbow. Belle should have been the one Yen Sid was training. If she had a time chamber that she could train in forever, she'd come out the other side looking like Beast's counterpart. What's that? The Demon Tide's killing all our allies and Sora's gonna have to embark on a metaphysical journey through time to save everyone? Nope. Just send in Belle with her infinitely trained elbow of justice and it's game over. The rest of the princesses quake in their glass slippers when they see Belle coming because they know just how far above them she is. She doesn't even hang out with them. She's off in the library reading books like the complete badass she truly is. She might as well take up the mantle of Queen of Hearts if that Alice in Wonderland bozo isn't going to do anything with it. Belle is the ultimate Princess of Heart, and there's no debate. So there you go. I've officially put the discourse to rest. We don't have to talk about it anymore. It's a done deal, and everything that I've said should be viewed as fact. I do wonder if the Princesses of Heart will ever appear or have some major importance in the series again, or if that's a concept that will stay in the quote-unquote Dark Seeker saga. If it ever were to return, I don't think it could ever seem as cool as it did in Kingdom Hearts 1, but I do think it's an interesting concept that could be explored more in the future if they chose to do so. If you watched this far, I just want to say thanks for doing that. I think that's pretty neat. Feel free to discuss who your favorite princess is in the comments. Am I right? If you liked the video, thank you. If you didn't, then I'm sorry. Have a good one.